I'm not typically one to think that everything out here is a setup or some type of conspiracy, but I think with this footage that we've looked at a lot yesterday, with Young Thug possibly being passed something in the courtroom, there's been some speculation that maybe it was a setup. Well, I think there are some unusual things going on. And if you know me, one of my favorite things to do, and one of the reasons I started this channel, was to look at the reactions to things that are happening, how the media responds, and then how people take what the media says and can roll with it. Now, back when that incident first happened in court, it was reported that it was Mark Winnie, a reporter, that got the exclusive. His colleague at WSB TV, Michael Sadin, had posted, "Exclusive, my colleague Mark Wynn just obtained surveillance video that shows the moment prosecutors accuse Young Thug and his co-defendant Khalieff Adams of conducting a hand-to-hand drug deal in court." And then this was the video. We'll play it here from the beginning. Now you pay attention to this deputy in the back. He's going to point as soon as Khalieff Adams gets up and starts walking. And you can see Khalieff coming around the corner, and the deputies start to move. And here's about to be the handoff. Not only is it an exclusive, but it's clarified here that it is in fact surveillance video. It looks like this is someone with their phone looking at a surveillance screen and just recording it quick to get the clip, which is a bit different than, if you request a record and they end up sending you an actual video file. Then right away, news started to go out and about this thing happening in court. And this is back in 2023, but it was relevant again because we hear that Adrian Love, the state, wants to introduce this type of stuff, these bad acts, alleged bad acts, as if there's some sort of intrinsic act relating to the things that these co-defendants are on trial for and currently indicted for. I clipped all those arguments from yesterday about the intrinsic acts, and Judge Whitaker sided with the defense on major points. So if you want to go back and watch that, we got to hear arguments from Leah Abbasi, co-counsel for Rodalius Ryan, as well as Khalieff Adams, Max Sharp, Brian Steele, and Doug Weinstein all had something to say. So I'll link that in the description. Very, very good arguments. And so Michael Sadin had gone on here to say that prosecutors say the surveillance shows Adams walk over to where Young Thug is seated with his attorney and then drop a Percocet in his hand. A deputy confronts Young Thug and he turns over the pill to authorities. When deputies searched Adams, they found him in possession of Percocet, marijuana, and tobacco wrapped in plastic and food seasonings to conceal the odor of weed, according to investigators. Adams was taken to Grady Hospital after he appeared to ingest other items of contraband in an effort to conceal the extent of his crimes within the courtroom. Prosecutors filed a motion asking the court to make a finding of fact that court was delayed on January 18, 2023 because of the actions of Defendant Williams and Defendant Adams. And then here, Attorney Khalieff Adams responds for what his client is being accused of.
The reality is Mr. Williams had nothing to do with what went on in the courtroom on yesterday. One of the co-defendants, on his way to the restroom, attempted to pass something to Mr. Williams, who immediately turned it over to the deputy.
He did not know it was allegedly Percocet?
Did not know. Well, we don't know what it is. Did not know what it was, turned it over to the deputy right away. The deputies took action. The individual who had the contraband, not Mr. Williams, was taken into the back, where I'm told he ingested whatever he had. He had to be taken to the hospital, and as a result, court was terminated for the rest of the day.
And then if we look back at some of the coverage from this day, it's a little bit more detailed. Fellow defendants handed Young Thug painkiller in court, prosecutors say. And this is from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution with familiar names Joseph Babb and Shadi Abu Said. Fulton County prosecutors allege that Khalieff Adams, one of Young Thug's co-defendants, handed him a Percocet pill in open court Wednesday and say surveillance footage proves it. So, at the time this article was written, whenever it was written, it says January 19th, the prosecution was already relying on surveillance footage. The same surveillance footage that this media exclusive with WSB TV had. The courtroom security footage obtained by Channel 2 Action News appears to show Adams handing something to Young Thug, whose real name is Jeffery Williams. And then they pull the tweet here that we just looked at. Defendant Adams, who is currently serving a life without parole sentence for murder, conducted a hand-to-hand drug transaction with defendant Jeffery Williams in open court, the state's motion said. As a result of defendant Williams and defendant Adams' possession and distribution, respectively, of contraband, court was delayed and adjourned before a single juror hardship was addressed for the day, according to the state's motion, which argues that the actions delayed jury selection. Now, this is good for, taking note of timing, tolling for the court proceedings. Like, well, we didn't waste this day. It was their fault. Attorney Tiambre Calland, who represents Adams, dismissed the claims. Mr. Adams adamantly maintains his innocence and looks forward to the conclusion of this trial, she said. Attorney Khalieff Adams, who represents Williams, said the motion is replete with factual inaccuracies, embellishments, and attempts to make Mr. Williams responsible for someone else's actions. The end result of an investigation into Wednesday's incident was that Mr. Williams was not engaged in any wrongdoing. Williams is accused of being the leader of Young Slime Life, an alleged criminal street gang based in southwest Atlanta. He is set to stand trial along with 13 other alleged associates. The defense maintains YSL is just a record label, not a gang. Suri Shada Jimenez, who represents co-defendant Cordarius Dorsey, said in a motion the DA's office deliberately published its version of events, knowing media coverage would follow. Courthouse visitors must go through security checkpoints, empty their pockets, and remove jackets and bags. Deputies then usher them through a metal detector while their belongings are run through an X-ray machine. There have been multiple contraband instances at the Fulton County Jail. In June, a 45-year-old maintenance worker was arrested after jail officials accused him of bringing marijuana, cigarettes, and a cell phone to detainees. A month earlier, a 24-year-old medical worker attempted to bring in drugs and tobacco products. The woman panicked during questioning and bolted, leaving behind 192 grams of pot, 20 grams of suspected crack cocaine, and tobacco, officials said. She was arrested weeks later in Mississippi. Another contracted medical assistant was arrested at the jail earlier this month after deputies found marijuana and tobacco inside her food containers, authorities said. Chief Judge Earl Glanville placed court in recess shortly after Wednesday's incident, the third incident involving contraband brought into the courthouse in recent days. And here Glanville says, the reason for the delay is that we've had yet another instance of alleged contraband being introduced to our space. As a result of that and a subsequent investigation, one of our inmates unfortunately had to go to Grady Hospital, Glanville said, referring to Khalieff Adams. Deputies approached Williams after the alleged handoff. According to the state's motion, Williams gave deputies the Percocet. And that's Khalieff Adams here and his attorney. Deputies then searched Khalieff Adams, who initially resisted, and found Percocet, marijuana, tobacco, and other contraband weapons in plastic and food seasonings to hide the odor. The state said. Deputies quickly apprehended the detainee and took possession of the contraband, and completed a search to ensure no more contraband was present, the sheriff's office said in a statement. Khalieff Adams was taken to the hospital after he appeared to have ingested items in what the state said was to conceal further crimes. Jimenez said Khalieff Adams was taken to a holding area following the encounter. Defense attorneys saw at least 2 officers remove their belts and firearms before going into the holding area, he said, then heard several minutes of loud noises coming from the back. He asserts that deputies used a taser on Khalieff Adams before taking him to the hospital. Mr. Adams was also transported because he needed medical assistance after being tased several times by officers, Jimenez wrote, raising concerns that some potential jurors heard the commotion. He asked that GBI investigate whether a crime took place in the courtroom and whether excessive force was used by deputies. Khalieff Adams, who was serving a life sentence at Hayes State Prison for a 2019 murder conviction, was back in court Thursday morning. He is charged with conspiracy to violate the state's RICO Act and attempted murder in the sprawling gang case. He's now also charged with possession of Schedule II controlled substances, 2 counts of willful obstruction of law enforcement officers, possession of marijuana less than an ounce, and possession of alcoholic beverage by an inmate. Co-defendants Rodalius Ryan and Damani Blaylock were also charged in Wednesday's incident. Ryan was charged with unauthorized possession of a prohibited item by an inmate, and Blaylock was charged with giving an inmate a prohibited item without authorization. Williams was not charged in the incident. And then at their first appearance for these new charges, all were denied bond on their new charges. And in an article from the same day, we have YSL trial, marijuana hidden in shoes, and other smuggled items delay jury selection. Defendants get new charges. So here we get the mention of, on Tuesday, a defendant's mother was arrested for allegedly bringing, quote, tobacco products to her son in a bag of clothes, according to her arrest warrant. On Wednesday, another defendant was taken to Grady Memorial Hospital following a separate instance of contraband being brought in. And then last week, Fulton County Chief Judge Earl Glanville said an unidentified person brought clothing to one of the defendants with marijuana hidden in the shoes. And this was found at a security checkpoint. So It never made it to the defendant, and no arrests were made in the incident. But on Tuesday, Glanville put defense attorneys again on notice after someone allegedly tried to smuggle contraband to one of the defendant's inside clothing. Glanville declined to say which defendant was involved at the time, but confirmed an arrest had been made and an investigation was underway. According to the affidavit obtained by Channel 2 Action News, attorney Doug Weinstein, who represents Diamante Kendrick, told deputies he received a bag containing clothes from his client's mother. Weinstein also told deputies he received a text message from the mother of Kendrick's child, stating she had placed a sealed envelope inside the bag. Kendrick is an Atlanta rapper who performs under the stage name Yak Gotti and is charged with multiple counts, including murder. Weinstein handed the bag to Fulton County deputies, who searched the bag and found the white envelope with tobacco wrapping paper and tobacco products, according to the warrant. Kendrick's mother was arrested on the 8th floor of the courthouse, charged with 1 count of criminal attempt to commit a misdemeanor, and released Wednesday on a $1,500 bond. According to the affidavit, Kendrick's mother told deputies she didn't know what was inside the bag and simply handed it to Weinstein. A warrant was also issued against the mother of Kendrick's child for criminal attempt with intent to commit a specific crime. And then Wednesday's proceedings were delayed until Glanville announced there had been a 3rd incident of contraband discovered. And so this was Khalieff Adams and when he had to go to the hospital. And because he wasn't able to be present, the hearing couldn't be held, so they had to have that delay. And going back to the story of Kendrick's mother, Kayla Bumpus had handled that case, and the charges ended up being dropped. Now we're going to look at one last article here. This was from a few days later on January 23rd, and it focuses on the defense's reaction to everything that's floating around. So, young thug surprised by courtroom pill handoff, attorneys say. New motion accuses prosecutors of, quote, poisoning jury pool. Attorneys for Atlanta rapper Young Thug say their client was stunned when a co-defendant walked up and handed him a prescription pain pill in the middle of court last week. In a motion filed Monday, the musician's defense attorneys also accused Fulton County prosecutors of misrepresenting what happened January 18th. Keith Adams and Brian Steele, who represent the rapper, whose real name is Jeffery Williams, said the state's explanation of events was full of inaccuracies and places their client in a bad light in the eyes of the media and the public. Such misrepresentations carry a distinct possibility of poisoning the jury pool. The state accuses Williams and co-defendant Khalieff Adams of conducting a hand-to-hand drug exchange in open court. Then they go through some background. In their motion, Williams' attorney said he appeared to be startled by the object being passed to him. It is patently clear from the images that there was no communication, solicitation, or request from Mr. Williams prior to that, his attorney said. Following the incident, Adams had to be taken to Greedy. Last week's filing by the state accuses Williams of delaying court proceedings. In their latest motion, the rapper's attorney said they seek to set the record straight. It is absolutely bewildering as to why the state would blatantly misrepresent the reason for the cessation of court activities in its motion when it knew that assertion was inaccurate, Williams' attorneys wrote. They called the state's motion frivolous and gratuitous and asked that the judge strike it from the record. On Monday, attorney Angela DeWilliams said her client, Rodalius Ryan, was injured by Fulton County deputies during an alleged scuffle before he was transported to the courthouse. DeWilliams said her client suffered injuries to his legs, hands, and head. I will be filing a formal complaint against the sheriff's office because they are agitating my client on purpose, and when he gets the court agitated, they act like they don't know what's going on, DeWilliams said. Ryan, while sitting in the back of a patrol vehicle, allegedly spit at a deputy on the driver's seat of the vehicle, according to the incident report. DeWilliams said her client was dragged out of the vehicle before he had a chance to get out voluntarily, causing him to be injured. He was charged with a misdemeanor charge, simple assault, and obstruction of police. Ryan was also charged in relation to last week's alleged contraband exchange incident. And here we get an update that out of these 600 potential jurors, still nobody has been seated at this point in time, January 23rd. So there's a throwback, flashback, recap for you on everything that happened with this Percocet pass. What do you guys think? You let me know in the comments.